Here is an exercise. Look at Xi Jinping's pictures closely and notice how he seldom laughs, never frowns, doesn't look agitated or perplexed. Xi Jinping looks like a seer who has his senses completely in control. His outwards give an impression of a man completely in control of things. And he radiates an aura of invincibility. Illusion of invincibility is a trait commonly associated with despots and tyrants of all kinds. But what is at a peak is certain to decline. And Xi Jinping, despite his machinations and show, is not invincible either. And his fall is almost around the corner. Hi and welcome. This is TFI Global, the foreign affairs and geopolitical analysis arm of the TFI Media Group. And I'm Atul Mishra, the founder of the TFI Media Group. In this video, I will bust the myth of Xi Jinping's invincibility and describe how his career is already going south. How strong is the Chinese president Xi Jinping? If we look at Western media reports, he may appear as the most powerful man on the planet. But the reality is, Xi might not be coming back to power for a third term in 2023. The issue is that Xi is outwardly strong but inwardly weak. And especially after the pandemic and upsurge in Chinese aggression, Xi faces an uphill task in 2023. William Pasek, a Tokyo-based journalist, explained how Xi's policies have eroded China's international image in international polls since 2018 in an op-ed appearing on Nikkei Asia. Pasek seems to believe that Xi's belligerent policies have damaged brand China. And this does matter in the context of the power struggle revolving in 2023. Before we embark on a long journey explaining how Xi has damaged China's international standing, let us make it very clear that China's external relations matter a lot in its domestic situation. Firstly, because China remains fundamentally an export-based economy. And secondly, because Xi gets paranoid every time the rest of the world mounts pressure on him. Xi definitely wants to stay in power, and this is why he's using the entire government machinery to run false propaganda about a magical rebound in the Chinese economy after the pandemic. He also claims to have rid the country of poverty. Even if people in China were to believe these lies, it would not suffice, because the Chinese president has already hurt brand China. It is clear that China's economy grew only because Beijing had developed a practical trading relationship with the West. For many years, the Western world kept hoping that China will liberalize itself, so they kept trading with China. But over the past couple of years, China dashed all such hopes. Xi actually grew too ambitious. He started locking horns with the former US President Donald Trump, who responded with a trade war and imposed tariffs on a range of Chinese goods that threatened to destroy China's export-based economy. And then the coronavirus pandemic damaged China's international standing even more drastically. The rest of the world did not take long to realize how China's opaque and authoritarian regime slipped the entire world into a pandemic that would go on to claim millions of lives. As is the case with autocratic leaders, Xi did not try to regain global trust. Rather, he responded with an iron fist. More human rights violations inside China, a reign of terror against Asian neighbors, and diplomatic tussles with the West and other democratic power centers like Australia. So, for example, the Australian Prime Minister asked some very practical questions of China. What happened in Wuhan in late 2019, and why an investigation should not be carried out into the coronavirus origins? But a panicked Xi responded with a trade war and diplomatic face-offs with Canberra. These were the first signs of Chinese hawkishness that started creating a very negative sentiment about the communist nation. Near its borders, Xi was found using the pandemic to gain geopolitical leverage. Like a real warmonger, Xi was sending around vessels and troops to engage Asian neighbors like India, Japan, Taiwan, Vietnam, and the Philippines. At the same time, China increased genocides in Xinjiang, killed personal liberties in Hong Kong, and tried to make a fortress out of Tibet. Let's be very clear, she was looking at things in a very twisted way. He thought that aggression and hooliganism would force the rest of the world into submission and make him the most feared world leader in a long time. But things boomeranged pretty quickly. There was a definite pushback from countries like India, Japan, and Australia, which tightened their defenses in order to contain China. And to further mount troubles on Xi, the world started noticing what Chinese authorities were up to. So organizations like the G7 and the European Union, which had rarely bothered to criticize Chinese atrocities, suddenly picked up issues like Xinjiang and Hong Kong. Xi himself has shown signs of growing paranoia and insecurity. His crackdown on Alibaba founder Jack Ma, for example, is likely to backfire and generate adverse sentiment amongst Chinese billionaires as well as the influential Shanghai faction within the CCP. Within China, there is a growing fear about how growing isolation and diplomatic pressure can hark the country back to the Maoist era of destitution. The fear is particularly prominent in the Chinese elites who have thrived on a relatively benevolent Chinese image. They suddenly find the murderous Xi regime hogging the limelight for all the wrong reasons. When Xi goes to polls in 2023, his strongman image will hardly matter. What will really be at play is his belligerent actions that have tarnished whatever reputation the Middle Kingdom enjoy. Xi is not invincible, and the world will understand this in just 2 years from now.